Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Luke.
Luke, we're joined once again by longtime listener, big-time fan, and multiple-time guest of the show from Xometry. We have Greg Paulsen back. Greg, thanks for joining us.
I am honored to be back. Thank you for having us.
It's kind of crazy that you are literally, is this your third time on the show?
It's number 3. It's number 3.
So third time's a charm. I don't know if that means this is going to be like our most successful or our most disastrous episode, but either way, welcome back. It's great to have you. The only time we've had someone on here 3 separate times, I think.
I think so. I think you're the first.
So again, welcome back. And we have one burning question that James and I have been thinking about.
Very important.
So we're in the middle of a global pandemic. We were talking about that before we jumped on the call. So depending on when you're listening to this, it's right around the beginning of July. So first of all, how has the pandemic treated you? First question. And the follow-up to that is, do you have a sweet beard or an amazing mullet right now?
So I'm going to start with that second because I did have a pretty good mullet going on. I was going full MacGyver for a little bit. And I actually was able to get to a barber within the last, I think, like week and a half. And it was actually a clean experience. I wore my mask the whole time. You don't want your respirator going above your head, but if you wear like a surgical mask, and I was the only person there, so I felt pretty good about it. But I kind of got a quasi bowl cut, but it worked out. It was not a mullet anymore.
Hey, yeah. I rock the bowl cut all the time. Yeah. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not cool because, all the cool kids know it is.
Yeah, but it was actually very relieving. It felt like a lot of weight off my head there. But otherwise, we've been, my wife and I have been working from home since about March timeframe. I know a lot of our Xometry team has been working from home. I think we went from about 15% remote workers to about 97% remote workers.
Wow.
Starting in March, because we do handle material goods, right? So we manufacture parts. So there's still things like inspection and other reasons why you actually have to package stuff and tangibly arrange that. But we've done an excellent job on our operations team at staggering how shifts work, this space, the safety is extremely important for the team. I've been thoroughly impressed about our response to that, but yeah, it's been a strange shift. And I think I was mentioning to you guys right before this, co-working with a 3-year-old has been very fun.
They are not the best co-workers, are they?
No, they're not. If you see some of our live webinars, although actually the live ones you haven't seen those in the recordings, but some of the sales calls that we've been on, she's been a guest as well, and it's been cute. I think the cute factor actually helps sales here.
I was going to say that might close the deal for you, right?
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I know. At least from my side, I don't have a 3-year-old that jumps in on meetings, but the wife definitely pokes in and is like, "Hey, can you print this for me? Hey, when are you going to be done? It's noon. I'm not done yet." So it's definitely a fun experience for everyone, I think.
Oh yeah.
All right. So let's move on to why people are really here. All of the great insights that you're going to provide for us. So we've talked about a number of different topics in the past. Like Luke said, third time's a charm here. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today has to do with manufacturing as a service, as well as distributed manufacturing, topics like this. So a lot of the people listening out there, and maybe one of the people talking right now, doesn't really know what manufacturing as a service is, or maybe hasn't heard about it so much. Could you give us a quick overview of what that might entail?
Yeah, absolutely. And manufacturing as a service is about 6 years old because Xometry is a little over 6 years old. So it kind of comes hand in hand there. But manufacturing as a service, if you take the analogy as anything like a software as a service platform, it's always about this, technology platform connecting together different needs with things that can provide, right? So, like the Office suite or something like that. And I need a Word doc. I got Word docs for you. So in this case, we are using a technology backbone to take some of the opacity out of finding a supplier if you're someone who needs stuff made. And for the suppliers, taking some of the challenge out at finding people who need stuff made. And so this is using technology as a platform. So this is the as a service part for manufacturing. But what we're doing is connecting buyers and suppliers in one seamless interface. So it's very cool and something that Xometry has really helped pioneer. And just kind of for some scales there, we have tens of thousands of customers. And on our manufacturing side, we're actually over 3,000 manufacturers within the US and growing. And globally, over 4,500. So we actually have a European branch. We have international manufacturing on Asia. So, I mean, we're a global operation now. We're helping that connection all just with one website.
So
go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, you talked about like the platform piece of this. So this is more than, I want this made and I send you, or a request for proposal, and then you just go and pick up a phone and call a supplier and say, hey, I need 27 widgets, or I need 27,000 widgets. What are you going to charge me? And then you guys aren't just this middleman pushing things through. There's a lot more to that middle piece that brings that manufacturing as a service to life. It's not just a pass through.
It's not a brokerage. Yeah. It's definitely not a brokerage, which is exactly what you're describing, where it's calling and we're doing calls. Like the technology driven, we're actually using AI, machine learning, data science, along with expertise to make these connections. So we are using, for the most part, Xometry's main service is using 3D CAD models that are uploaded to our site. Those 3D models are instantly interpreted. And instead of doing a classic RFQ, like you're talking about, like how much does this cost, price appears. So we interpret that 3D model, and based off that process that you're choosing, the quantities that you have, features and finishes and tolerances, even things like certifications like ITAR requirements, it'll automatically provide a market fair cost. So this is not the bid war. This is here's your buy it now price based off what you specified. And if you purchase that for our manufacturers, we also are not shooting out for 100 bids. We're actually saying this is the pay price. This is what we will pay you for this job. Here's the scope of work. Here's the lead time needed. Do you want to take it? Yes or pass? So it's kind of Uber-fied the manufacturing side. Like they have that. Yeah, I could take that. Boom, take it, and that's instant purchase order for them without having to do like sales and marketing or find that customer. Like we find the customers, and they're able to take a look on what our partners call the job board. This board of this listing of different items, and for them it's even easier because we actually use data science to help match stuff that we think matches with them best. So hopefully at the top of the list is things that they want to take. And, for those customers, again, it's one site. We have 11 different manufacturing processes. So everything from a variety of 3D printing of plastics and metals to traditional CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, urethane casting, and we're adding more and more. So, I mean, we're expanding that because we have all these partners who have all these capabilities. So we're kind of using them to create hey, what should we add next? What can we be a storefront for this huge manufacturing base for? So it's a really good feedback loop.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the model of like, here's going to be the production cost, here's going to be the pay rate, depending for your manufacturers, that it's kind of like set in stone. If you look at even things like car dealerships, a lot of them are moving closer to that model where they're like, hey, this is the window price, and this is the actual price that you're going to be paying. You're not coming in and haggling anymore, things like that, where people were kind of uncomfortable over the years with working in that fashion. Like, am I getting the right price? Am I getting a good deal? That probably is a similar thing with the way you're working, because I know I'm not good at haggling but still want the best price. So I think it's really an interesting model that you're working with there, both from the consumer and the person producing the parts.
Yeah, and even old school. If you're like GE, I know internally the sourcing team has they pay a lot of money for software that creates what's called a should cost
Mm-hmm.
model. And by the way, GE, they actually are a customer and now investor of Xometry. So like GE,
Oh,
BMW, Bosch, Dell, they all have become investors of Xometry after being customers. But this should cost model is kind of a sanity check for the sourcing team. So if they get a price back and there's too much of a discrepancy, they're like, hey, let me raise my hand here. In this case, we're putting that should cost model just for everybody to use. And we are actually feeding that back because we're not just throwing this data out there willy-nilly. Like we have a feedback loop. We actually have to pay our suppliers
mm-hmm.
and make sure that price is nominal. So say, for example, we underbid, then we're taking a loss on that if we were paying suppliers for that. And so we actually, part of our data science feedback loop is that how much, is a customer paying, how much is the supplier taking it for, and making sure that we're evening that out. By also having this huge diversity, this is going a little bit ahead of ourselves of distributed, but by having diversity, you're able to start aiming for sweet spots. So some shops just make the same part better because they're already tuned or already have operations that are just really good at doing that. And they can usually do that better and cheaper. So we're able to get a little bit more competitive on pricing overall because we're aiming for those sweet spots versus just aiming for, the middle ground. We're actually aiming for those who could actually do it at quality at that lowest price. So that's our goal there, to keep competitiveness into our pricing.
Gotcha. So someday, James, we will have investors in professional engineering in Greg
So
for
yeah,
the mere cost of. No, I'm kidding.
I like that you bring that up, Luke, especially because I just heard all of those customers turned investors that are working with Xometry, which is awesome. I did notice that when I went to your webpage, I didn't see unprofessional engineering
I,
listed there. I
I
assume it's on the web team, like they're just backlogged and haven't gotten there yet.
yeah, it's those dang product teams. I think I actually did promise that in a second episode we recorded. So my most sincerest apologies.
That's all
That's
good.
all right. That's all right.
I'll give you a hero banner. Yeah.
So you
Perfect.
mentioned capabilities previously, and you said Xometry's been around for about 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do a little bit of a history lesson. So this idea of manufacturing as a service is relatively new because Xometry kind of invented this or made it, accessible. So could you give us an idea of kind of what that target market looked like and the capabilities were when you started? Where you're at now, and then if you had a crystal ball, what would be the one or two things you'd like to see in the future?
Oh yeah. So I mean, obviously we didn't start with 11 manufacturing technologies, and along the way we were doing some plastic and metal 3D printing. So one type of plastic 3D printing, one type of metal 3D printing, and CNC machining. And we started actually with an internal shop. And that internal shop became a very good aerospace manufacturing shop, as well as essentially our lab. So that's where we started getting our original data from, was like, what does this work for? And so we had the manufacturing that you could just walk to and talk shop about, including hanging out with the software engineers. And I think that was very critical in our growth and development, because we were using kind of manufacturing sense when we were talking about the modeling there.
Yeah, you had all the right people in the room at the right time at the same time.
Yeah, I got to say our co-founders, Randy Altschuler and Lawrence Zerf, I think they did a really good job at getting the right people on the bus, including like high levels of expertise in different manufacturing fields, because we needed to answer the phone. Right, you needed to be able to talk to different customers about their challenges and talk in a way that makes sense, especially for like things like design for manufacturability, and talking strengths and trade-offs for different processes, which has been my life for over a decade. It's just talking a variety of processes and working with customers to figure out what to choose and why between those. But as we grew, we started adding technologies on board. We started automating more of these processes based off the data, and starting to get that, like I said, that flywheel, get that feedback loop to start spinning. network publicly, like when we're like, hey, we were doing the manufacturing partner network, it was a change. It was definitely something to try to explain because, yeah, how do you differentiate from a brokerage? What makes you different? And I think for us, quality shows. I think also 3D printing helps because 3D printing is kind of like the gateway into manufacturing. You can get a part for sometimes less than $10, but the tens of dollars range, and try us out like Xometry, try a few more projects in 3D printing, and then it's like, hey, let's see what their CNC machining does, and get your good parts. Mm-hmm. And so we were also able to build rapport with those with our customer base. But just like anything else, it's a grind. It's always a grind of working with customers, working with a new manufacturing model, very different than calling up the shop and seeing what's this price, and then calling up another shop with the exact same bid, saying what's this price, and going forward. But that's really how we've grown, and we've expanded out. Where we're going is it's actually really cool. Like we've opened up in the last year or so. We opened up a couple other branches of Xometry. Well, Xometry Finishing has been one of those branches, which is using some of our finishes that we already use for things like post-process treatments like heat treats, anodize, etc., and just basically creating an automated connection for customers who aren't using Xometry to make parts, but need stuff painted or need stuff anodized, but they go through and use our already vetted network to do some of that work. So that was kind of a very cool transition for us. So we're providing a portion of services without doing the full white glove service. And we also have Xometry Supplies, which is for that huge manufacturing base, because we inadvertently became a manufacturing rep of thousands. And now we're able to leverage that and get things like tools and raw materials for our manufacturers quicker and cheaper. And our supply store has really, really skyrocketed the last year for sure. And it's basically an e-commerce store where you can buy material goods. If you're actually running, I know we have some folks who are running like, in the garage, like a Tormach or I would say a prosumer CNC. It's not quite hobbyist. It's better than that, but they're using supplies a lot to get their aluminum materials and end mills pretty cheaply. So it's not just for our manufacturing partners, it's for people who are also, manufacturers in general. So we're expanding out beyond that. I need my full turnkey service to other services that help portions of that. And we're continuing to nurture that as well.
That sounds exciting.
It does. And you mentioned one thing in there about how, somebody can get started with you on 3D printing for 10 or tens of dollars, maybe expand that a little bit, and then oftentimes you see them then venture into other areas of the manufacturing process with you. So for any of our listeners out there, if you haven't checked out the other 2 episodes with Greg talking about Xometry, we actually covered that in pretty good detail in one of the other episodes, so make sure to go and check those out. I do have another topic that I wanted to talk about, which is something called distributed manufacturing. But before we get into that, Luke, I think it's a good time to take a break for a word from our sponsor.
If you're looking for quality parts delivered at a consistent price, make sure you check out Xometry.com. That's Xometry.com. You're going to get instant feedback, designed for manufacturing information, lead times, and pricing in seconds. It doesn't take days. You'll get custom finishes and everything you need to get your parts made quickly. Make sure you check out Xometry.com. That's Xometry.com.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Luke.
You need like a little jingle there, like Xometry.com. Where's your parts? Yeah.
See, this man wears many hats. He's now a jingle writer as well.
Alrighty.
I love it. All right, so on to distributed manufacturing. So we were talking about manufacturing as a service, but distributed manufacturing is a little bit different. So could you explain what it actually is? And then, what would the benefits be for a customer?
Yeah. And I briefed on, that sweet spot manufacturing, which I think is an instant plus. And that's something that, because we have this back system, we actually kind of know what they like. We know what their history is. You know how in Netflix, you have like a 93% chance that you'll like that. we kind of do that with parts for these manufacturers. Hey, there's a 97% chance that you'll like this part here.
Yeah, that's
take a
cool.
look at it. But I think that's something very cool and really helps streamline Xometry's technology backbone from connecting buyers and suppliers. But distributed manufacturing, a lot of that has to do with that post-order side. I think the best way to describe its benefits is actually to talk about things like this pandemic and natural disasters. My first experience with the raw power of distributed manufacturing was a few years ago when Partner Networks knew, and there was some tropical storms happening down in Florida and Texas, and we were looking at the partner data, and our first worry was, okay, we have some shops down there that are making customer parts, and we were talking with them, and the partners were like, yeah, we know a storm's coming. We're not going to take any parts right now because we may be flooded. And what happened was this whole natural movement without us, sitting there tweaking and moving pins and knobs, where these shops just didn't take work during that period of disaster. And the work that was already out there was just taken by other shops. And, in a different part of the country. And it was seamless. It was just this very, very quick organic movement, kind of like a self-healing system of manufacturers with similar capabilities just taking on that work when other portions have gone down. I remember Hurricane Harvey in Texas was like this in that same manner, where we had shops that were about to be exposed to massive flooding, actually, and they just transitioned. We had some jobs in progress. We asked them, like, hey, do you want to keep this work? Are you going to finish it early, or do you want us to move it? And we gave them flexibility because we had shops to move that work to and still hit the lead times required. And we were able to do that because we had so much redundancy. So I think distributed manufacturing, having that resiliency and redundancy, is just a huge key factor. And then
I was gonna say, I think it's good for organizations. What's the saying? Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So if you have a sole supplier and you're in that kind of traditional supplier customer relationship, and if this supplier goes down, or if a pandemic hits and that state has a stay-at-home order and there aren't people going into, you can really put yourself in a jackpot. And I feel like this distributed manufacturing and using like this Xometry platform, it just happens. It just goes to the next possible supplier to provide that work for you.
Yeah, and for customers, so those who are needing parts, like the website's up 24/7, right? So you could always just use a website, access, purchase your parts. And actually talking about a pandemic, I literally had this call where someone who had their entire manufacturing base in Pennsylvania said, Pennsylvania's closed, and their entire manufacturing base, and it took a while. I think it just started ramping up, a couple weeks ago, maybe, 2-3 weeks ago, for at least for their needs. But they were able to use our supply chain, and essentially Xometry, we were just able to connect that through. So you could continue your business as usual. I think the other side of this, though, that is very important from the as a service side is how do I know my parts are quality? And I think that's really important to mention. Now, that's what Xometry does, is we hold those same quality standards as any like high level machine shop has, and we distribute that amongst all our partners. We hold all our partners to that same standard. So we're elevating those standards from like kind of a local standard that they may have, like, some shops are just working locally and they may be used to this customer and customer's okay with this or that. But a lot of our customers have receiving inspection. And so we need to have receiving inspection too at Xometry. And by elevating our manufacturing standards to kind of what are agreed upon national standards for like general tolerances, what does this type of inspection require, et cetera, we can keep the expectations level across an entire network. And a lot of these partners are growing with us to hit these manufacturing quality needs. So I think that's a huge thing, because you're not just ordering a shape, right? If you're an engineer, you're not just like, I want a shape of this. You actually want something that functions for you, and hits your specs and hits your tolerances, and that's our customer base. That's what we work with. Yeah.
How is it that with distributed manufacturing, like you're saying, you have people all over the United States, all over the world that are helping with these processes? How do you ensure that level of quality from everyone?
So we have kind of what we call a crawl, then walk, then run approach when we
Okay.
onboard new partners. We do have tests. We actually start with the regular stuff. It's very easy to enroll. You go to work.xometry.com, start your enrollment process as a manufacturer. Sign NDAs, start putting in your profile, which is, I'm a shop, I do sheet metal, I have 2 water jets, I have 5 press brakes. And I like making these parts and these materials. And so you start filling that profile, and then we actually give you a part where, like, make this. And it's a Xometry internal part that has, a couple little tricks to it. But it's enough that it creates a baseline across different manufacturers for them to join on. So that's kind of like the entry level one, is this test part. And we pay them for that, by the way. We pay manufacturers to make those parts. And then we have essentially a way of, how to say it, we do a double QA. So new partners get essentially 2 QAs where they are, they make their parts, then they go to Xometry's QA facility. So we actually have the Gaithersburg, Maryland. We have this fantastic QA facility, the gamut, like CMMs, digital comparators, every manual tool you could possibly imagine, plugs, gauges, calipers, micrometers, profilometers, spectrometers.
I feel like you're making up most of those.
I think so too.
They have flux capacitors.
Gigawatts. So, but basically, we're able to inspect those parts a second time before they get to the customers. Ultimately, we want to graduate all our partners to direct ship. Gives them a couple extra days of time to do that job. And if they provide a quality score, they have a feedback loop called the partner success score, and it rates their quality, timeliness, and other interaction variables. And once they get up to a certain level, then they can go and direct ship from their facility to our customer. But we have levels that they have to achieve in order to do that, and they can also go back. So if they start seeing a quality change or something like that, we also have a feedback loop that helps us, kind of trigger a partner call, make sure that everything's going okay, and work through it with them as well.
I feel like that.
I was going to say, so essentially you're vetting suppliers for customers that they don't have to do.
It's completely catered supply chain. Like it's one website, 4,000 suppliers, click of a mouse or touchscreen. Yeah.
I feel like the the direct shipping option, when they're available or when they qualify for that, that's kind of like a win for everyone, right? They have more days to get the job complete, probably lower shipping costs for you, them, probably the customer then sees that in return long term, and the customer potentially gets it more quickly and, for sure a higher quality product as well. That's awesome. I love the testing program.
Yeah, and all this started years ago. I can't stress it enough. It's not just an overnight thing. You have to build that rapport. You have to build that network. You have to build the technology and the metrics to do this. And I got to say, the team here is just kind of amazing. Like we have a job, like we literally have like every type of job here at Xometry, because you have the people who are the manufacturers, you have the ops guys, you have the sales folks, but you also have computational geometry. You have data science. You have software development. So it's a really interesting mix when you put it all together.
Gotcha. So there's not too many companies out there like Xometry. I'm sure you've done your research, and if there is someone else out there, but I feel like every time we talk, kind of the prevalence of this keeps on going up. So in your mind, and I'm not suggesting competitors all jump in the water right now, but what do you think it's going to take for distributed manufacturing as a service to become more commonplace? Or maybe the better question is, what are the, 2 or 3 things, so let's say a brand new high profile company calls you and they have these 3 things. This is why we can't work with you and we need to go direct to XYZ. How do you answer that, that big major company that has some kind of requirements? Like, what are those 2 or 3 things that's holding them up now that you guys can help them with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of transparency. Like you change a quantity, price changes. You add certificate of conformance, price updates on that. There's a lot of established infrastructure where you're asking for a quote that is because you don't know if you're being scammed or not. When you're I shouldn't say scammed, but you don't know why quotes are coming out the way they're coming out. You may throw one part out to 4 different suppliers and get wildly varying prices based off that. So there's a lot of these larger established companies have written in their ISO policies. ISO is basically saying what you do and doing what you say. So like ISO 9001 or AS 9100, these standards here. And we're an AS 9100 company, by the way. But sometimes it's written in that they need to get competitive bids. So how does a company that is instantly pricing something out, like how do you know that bid is competitive? And I think that is a continuous challenge for us, because we can talk about it all we want, saying, hey, we have a price feedback loop, we're looking at our portfolio pricing, we're using computational geometry to figure this out, and we're actually paying people. Like we're completing that feedback loop. So we know what it costs, and we're looping that back in. But some of that, some of that is not as explicit. So how do you, as a company who's used to getting competitive bids, how do you show that even though this pricing is good, and even if I go out to 4 other people and Xometry's pricing is still great, like, do I need to go out to 4 other people every single time? And I think that's a big challenge, because sometimes it's literally written in for those companies.
Gotcha.
Excuse me.
So if there's someone out there now, especially like in these crazy times with everything going on with the pandemic, say their company is struggling with the manufacturing capabilities, maybe what they normally do is shut down, or they don't have access to the machines they normally do, or even maybe they're hitting capacity limitations or issues. What would be the best advice that you have for a company like that to, help get through this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I've been with Xometry since near the beginning, and I've written a vast majority of their FAQ and design guides as well. But Xometry does have a lot of free resources online. So videos, design guides for those 11 different processes that we have. And I think what's nice about what we have just from a resource side is we are process agnostic, because we're not just one brand of machine and we're trying to make everything fit into that machine. We have so many options available that our goal is more on project success, like what's going to make your part or your project or the specific time frame that you need it most successful. And we're able to show those options. And the quoting site itself, even if you're just getting budgets, you can upload that 3D file. Boom, price shows up right away. You can configure it, change it to CNC machined, and then say what's it in aluminum, what's it in PEEK, what's it in these other materials, titanium. You can see how those pricing deltas occur. So I think that the site in itself, especially if you go over the resources tab and the capabilities tab, there's so much there to explore and learn more about. But we also have an entire team similar to my role, where we are application engineers, and we are working to, hopefully you have the CAD up. So look at the CAD or look at the drawing and talk with you about what your needs are. I like to ask, what are the next 6 weeks looking like for you? What are the next 6 months and next 6 years? Because there's very likely different manufacturing processes within those time frames depending on your needs, and we help work out. But I would say, yeah, definitely look at those. Definitely look through. Check out some of the design tips and start trying to figure out what's my end product going to be and what my immediate needs are, and work within those processes. And there's a lot of opportunity there.
It's like you have, I mean, I was going to try to count them, but there were too many. If you just go to xometry.com/design dash guides, it literally, you have guides for like pretty much every possible manufacturing scenario. It looks like, if not all of them, a whole bunch of them.
A lot of them, yeah. I'm actually, by the way, this is a plug because maybe when this is published, it'll be out, but I'm literally writing the newest version of our sheet metal guide right now.
Nice.
So, yeah. So,
make sure to check that one out, huh?
Yeah. It's riveting. You know, you get to learn about how many material thicknesses away you could create a hole from an edge of a sheet metal part. It's very exciting.
That does sound like a good read. I know my boss always says that he listens to podcasts as he's going to sleep, and he'll sometimes send Luke and I a picture of himself listening to ours. And I don't know if that's a compliment that he's listening to us to fall asleep or not, but you know, it still makes me feel okay. Okay, I think we're about out of time. Luke, did you have any other final questions that you wanted to ask?
No, I just wanted to, Greg, wish you good luck through the rest of this pandemic. Hopefully your mullet doesn't come back. And it looks like we're on video here. I was kind of pretending at the beginning. You look like you're kind of like me. It took me about 6 months to grow the beard that I have. I have zero facial hair, and you look like you might be in the same boat as I am.
I grow out kind of either like the snooty French waiter with a gap in the middle, or like Fu Manchu if I let it go, or in like, you know, that Egyptian like straight out like column beard. So if I really let it go, that's what would happen to me. I can't even grow sideburns.
And the only person worse than me with growing facial hair is James. So
I was going to say, I mean, I haven't gotten a haircut since this all started, and it's still not at the length it used to be. So that's one thing. But the beard, I mean, it's not looking good, and it has been a long time since I shaved. So yeah, I'm glad we're all in the same boat.
Just wanted to wish you good luck through all of this, and can't wait to have you on a fourth time. I'm sure that you'll have some amazing technology or guide to share with us, and we can chat again sometime in the future. So thanks for being with us.
And guys, stay safe. And also to the listeners, I mean, it's wild times. It's like sometimes it's gallows humor on how we joke about it, but it is it's crazy, and it's very close to home for a lot of us here. I know we talk about the power of distributed manufacturing and all that, but first off, health and happiness.
Yep.
Absolutely. I did want to give one final shout out. If you haven't already, head over to the Xometry YouTube channel. They have a cool new series that they're just like pumping out episodes on called OK Zoomer. Did I get that right?
OK Zoomer.
Yeah, it's super cool. I've listened to a number of them myself. I kind of nerd out on that stuff. I figure if you're listening to us now, it's probably something that you're into as well. And the host of the show, if I'm not mistaken, is actually a former Jeopardy champion. So probably a little bit smarter than Luke and myself. So make sure to go check that one out on YouTube as well. So Greg, again, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this like they have the last two. I'm sure they did. If any of you have any questions for Greg, feel free to reach out to us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com, and we'll make sure to get your questions sent over to him. And until next time.
See ya.